What is poppin' squad? It's your boy Jesimein, and welcome back to another Division 2 video. Now, today we're going to be talking about the PvP meta. I played enough of it. We've been playing as much PvP as we could possibly play this past week. Everybody's pretty much got to the point where they have their build idea that they're going across. And you're kind of seeing what the meta is, right? So when I first made this video, on my first impressions, it was just Eagle Bears running around, which, I mean, for the most part, most of like the super serious players are still going to be running their typical Eagle Bear build with on the ropes, devastating, compensated, high armor, and spotter, right? So that's pretty much going to be the basis. Like if you're running a regular DPS build, I call it regular because, you know, most people have it. I don't want to diss none of you AR players, right? I don't want nobody to say, oh, you're dissing. No, I'm just saying the most common build you see is something along those lines, right? And then you have players running it with LMGs, and then you have, you know, your typical nemesis every now and then. And then you have the skill builds, right? So originally, when I first made my skill build, I didn't see the potential it had to be a true hybrid. I pretty much used the foam, or I used the blinder to get my gloves to proc. I was super tanky, or I used a seeker version, or I used bombardier version, whatever skill wise, right? Play it like a skill build. But I found a happy medium where I can pretty much out DPS these DPS builds, bro. And if you're asking me, the meta, which I already stated, I feel like skill builds are meta anyways. But now that there's this variation of it, I truly feel like hybrids are the actual meta. And the reason I say this is because a lot of people who run burst DPS builds, they don't get their damage because so much people have these crazy heals. Now what you need is something that does just enough damage to where if you land your shots, you can kill them, but your sustain is way more important because most Eagle Bears beam anyways. Like I'm beaming with a regular P416 or in a Pestilence usually when I'm running this build anyway, so the time to kill itself doesn't really warrant you to have a 30k plus Eagle Bear. So what you're seeing is you're seeing players spec more into skill power. Some players are actually putting on the gloves and kind of running what you see me running right here, which is pretty much a blinder to proc and then super powered chems. Some people have these amazing mods that kind of take into RNG into factor, which, I mean, if you have some OP mods with like my kind of build, bro, it's GG's, right? So how I feel about it and what it comes down to is I think the meta is hybrid. I think the meta is going to continue to be this unless something changes with the gloves, which I hope not, because finally, you know, you can have some versatility as far as what skills are being ran, right? Like almost every skill in the game, other than the trash ones, are pretty much being used in different circumstances. Yes, some of them are cheesy, like foam is extremely cheesy, bombardier is extremely cheesy, but you know, healer builds are back in a way. You can have a crazy revive hive, you can have a crazy hive, you can have a crazy booster. There's all kinds of stuff because of the duration and the buff that you get from it, that there's a lot of things that you could tap into that you wouldn't usually be able to had not the gloves come into play. It's crazy how one gear piece or one exotic can change an entire flow of a game, because skill builds were underpowered, and now I see they're at a point where I'm not going to say they're overpowered because they're not. The typical Eagle Bearer build still going to shred regardless, and I think if they're going to nerf skills, I feel like they're going to probably nerf a lot of things before they just do skills again, especially because skills weren't used before then. I'm pretty sure that whatever data they have, they can see that skills are actually being used, and it feels better. This is the closest we've been to 1.7 in this game because of this, right? If you remember in Division 1, it was pretty much, you know, some people ran their ARs with their adept combos with their alpha bridge, and they had heals, or they had super high skill haste with heals while being able to do DPS. This is the closest that you're going to get to it. Yes, some people don't like foam. Yes, some people don't like one-shot explosions, because I don't, and I'm a skill build player. But I rather have this than what we've had, and I think it's at a good place. You can tell by how many players are actually conducting PvP inside of the ODZ. Now, I don't know about normalized, and I don't know about conflict, but one thing I do know is compared to the past of what we had so far in this season of Division, I think right now more people like it than hate it. Some people, whatever gropes they have with the game, those are understandable people. That's just the ones who just don't like the game, period. But for the people who've been playing PvP and been waiting for a change, this is the best that we've had so far, and I think that it's at a good place. I think it's fun, especially I'm kind of biased because I love skill builds, right? I was so tired of skills being that trash that it's like, man, finally now that I get something that's good, I'm gonna be able to use it. So if you're looking to come back into PvP, you're gonna want a hybrid. It's way more fun. It's way more effective. You don't really have to worry about a lot of the BS that we were worrying about, where it's like one build, one shotgun. I don't even see shotguns, bro. I came across like 1 or 2 shotguns in the past week. So people say that shotguns are crazy and that they're still OP, whatever. I don't see them, man. And if I do, it's very rare. I don't see how a shotgun, unless it's a ridiculously spec'd one-tap shotgun, how it's going to just outburst the amount of heals that we can have when you have a hybrid, let alone a team healer, right? So there's situations where if you can somehow proc your gloves and have a hive and a chem, like you can really have some D1 vibe type reclaimer defib heals, right? And I think people like that. I think people like that you can play a role. Like healers actually got buffed by a substantial amount. I think out of everything, if you're a healer, you got buffed the most out of everything in the game. Just the amount of potential you can have with the B TSU gloves is just unreal. It's amazing. I think it's exactly what the game needed, and we need more like this. We need more exotic pieces that people can play around with that open up different roles. Like if you ask me, I wouldn't mind if they gave people a DPS one, or they gave people a sniper one, or they gave people a tank one. I wouldn't even mind. Like give us an exotic chest that just makes you a crazy tank. Like that'll be tight. Or give us a mask that makes you a crazy sniper. Since skills have a crazy one, it's okay. You give all roles it, you know what I'm saying? But how I see it is, I still think there's a lot of things that can still be improved. I think, but for the most part, this is the best PvP we've had so far. I could be biased. I could be speaking. People say, oh, of course you're going to say that. No, I really do. And I could tell just by the amount of time I've been putting in. And I think a lot of people can vouch for it. Although there are situations where you're like, man, like how you just saw me die earlier to Bombardier, where you're like, okay, that's stupid. I'd rather have those stupid moments within PvP because more people are playing it than no stupid moments with no PvP. You know what I'm saying? This is the best version of PvP that we have so far, minus conflict, because conflict sucks because it's only eagle bearers. But for the most part, ODZ is hot. It's popping. It's active. I don't know if it's just my servers, but the past few days that I've been playing, dude, we've been finding fights at all times. Like it could be the middle of the day, it could be the middle of the night, it could be evening. We always ended up finding teams coming out, and they will always come out because it's like it's actual PvP. It's not like just overwhelmingly destruction, don't do anything, right? So I think for most people, this is the PvP we've been looking for. And when it comes to a meta, skill builds are definitely in the equation. Some people don't want to run it because they don't want to give up a skill to proc like a blinder or something. But honestly, I think it's the best thing to spec into if you guys want my humble advice. I've been having a blast going against every single kind of build. And if you want to throw in, you have Lit's Merciless build, which is pretty much a meta on its own because you can't stop it. So there's options, right, folks? There's people who say the shotguns are strong. Nemesis is clearly strong for snipers. I don't see why you would run any other sniper. Skill hybrids, like in my case, and skill builds are really strong. And then you have the typical DPS build with the Eagle Bearer, not even the Eagle Bearer, with a P416. So it's not even like it's unfair because you don't have an Eagle Bearer. No, you can do the same amount of damage in burst with just having a P4 because of on the ropes and spotters. So everybody has their taste. The sweats have their typical build. The hippies and like free runner like me running around with skill builds want to be different. We have ours. The outcast type people who just want to sit in the back and snipe and play their role, they have theirs. And then the people who just enjoy shotguns can still run shotguns. And I think that is cool. The only people who really don't have a good time right now are rifle players and sub players. I think rifles and subs need some kind of buff to get them in the fray. ARs are in a good place. LMGs are still in a good place. Shotguns are fine. Yeah, so once you fix that, then maybe the meta will change. But I think overall, just to define what the meta is currently hybrid builds, no matter what weapon you're using. Preferably, I think the most hybrid is going to be probably, it's not even my skill build. My skill build is amazing. I think it's the best, but I think typically the meta is going to be an Eagle Bearer or P14 player with really good heals. Gave up a little bit of armor for that extra 2,000 skill power or what have you. So go from there, work on it, and you probably enjoy PvP a million times more than you have. So it's been real. I love you. I appreciate y'all. Let me know what y'all think about this current meta. Is it good? Is it bad? Drop a like. Your boy is out.